Pound of Flesh by Shembre. Chapter 14. No. Kovu hissed under his breath as the outsiders formed a ring around him and Sarabi. Dread quickened his heartbeat. Zira, Sarabi hissed. The fur stood on end along her spine. She lowered her head aggressively. Zira chuckled, swishing her tail. My, the both of you have strayed a bit far from home. But so have we. We were hoping to find dinner. But I think I like this more. Sarabi, I wasn't interrupting a precious moment between you and my son, wasn't I? The other outsiders laughed and tightened their ring around Kovu and Sarabi. Sarabi huffed. If you were worth anything, you wouldn't have hunted us like this. Kovu caught Vidani's eye. His sister grinned back at him. He looked at the other lionesses. The outsiders looked like they were feeding off his and Sarabi's fear, finding it pleasant. Kovu counted 7 lionesses total, and Nuka. Protecting Sarabi and himself against that many was impossible. Leave me and my grandson in peace. The bridge of Sarabi's nose wrinkled as she bared her teeth, her ears pinned to her skull. She moved and stood so her side was to Zira, and so she was standing back to back with Kovu. Kovu tried snapping himself out of his shock. This couldn't be happening. This had to be a nightmare. It was night, and he was lying outside the den where Sarabi was sleeping, peacefully, safely. But why wouldn't the grinning outsiders go away? I shouldn't have confronted Zira in the Outlands. I drew attention to myself. My son, join us. Kovu looked at his mother and shook his head. He curled his lip. No, never. Not even to save yourself. He shook his head again. I die before following you. Zira smiled with an almost bored, but still conniving look on her face. Not even to save this Pridelander. She jerked her head at Sarabi. Kovu nearly choked on the air in his lungs. Oh, is that the deal that interests you? Zira asked in a lilting voice. Kovu narrowed his eyes. He was far from trusting Zira, but he was helpless against 8 full-grown lions. He would let her go on her, Kovu. Don't listen to her, Sarabi snapped. She hit him with her tail. You'd regret dealing with her, and then what? You'd be under her paw again, trapped in the Outlands. She'll keep making deal after deal until she gets what she wants. That's what she's always done. Kovu turned to Sarabi, and he saw the conflict in his eyes reflected back. He knew his mother was manipulating him, but he couldn't let the outsiders kill Sarabi. What chance at all did he have to protect her? Sarabi would be meeting with the great kings in moments once the outsiders attacked. If he didn't do something, and maybe if he could just get close enough to Zira. One last chance, Kovu, Zira said. Join us, and I will let Sarabi go free. Unharmed. Kovu looked down at his paws, and then back up at Zira. If you leave Zira... No, I won't let you. Issuing a growl Kovu never imagined could come from the old lioness, Sarabi rushed to the nearest outsider and grabbed a mouthful of dirty, flea-eaten fur. Wide-eyed, Kovu cried out, No! All the other outsiders swarmed Sarabi. They sank their fangs into her chest and back and raked their claws down her sides. This can't be happening. With a roar, Kovu pushed his way into the fight and was able to get a paw on Sarabi before two lionesses shoved him backwards. He leaped again. He tore at the backs of lionesses too strong for him. They had been trained for murder beyond killing for food. He resented and envied them for their skill. Raised with Brightlanders, he didn't stand a chance. And instead of simply killing Sarabi, they were torturing her. He heard her furious snarls and yelps. He knew she would fight as long as she could. Desperation increasing, Kovu swatted and bit into Nuka's back, drawing blood. Nuka roared and spun, driving his paw under Kovu's jaw, knocking Kovu off balance. A lioness came at Kovu from the side, and with Nuka's help, they pinned Kovu to the ground. He tried to wriggle free, but it was impossible with two full-grown lions riding his back. The outsiders continued to tear Sarabi to pieces. Nuka snorted in Kovu's ear and laughed. "Mother's finished waiting for you, termite. You're no chosen one. Killing us will solve nothing," Kovu spat. "We're not gonna kill you. This will get you out of the way. Your precious father won't forgive you for his mother's murder." So they planned on letting him live with the consequences of Sarabi's death. Kovu curled his lip. "Simba's been a better father to me, and Scar was to you." Nuka's paw came down hard over Kovu's brow, breaking the skin. "Shut up, worthless one." "Nuka!" Dazed, Kovu blinked and sucked a sharp breath. The lionesses had stopped attacking Sarabi. The old queen was sitting hunched over, shaking and panting. One eye was clenched shut. Zira sat several lengths away, breathing heavily through her toothy grin. Spitting out the bloody saliva in her mouth, Sarabi growled, "You must think my death is the solution, Zira, but it will prove nothing." Zira chuckled. "I think your son will see things differently." She raised a paw to her forehead. "Oh, to lose two parents and a child under unfortunate circumstances. It might prove to be too much. He might let the grief get the better of him." Zira then launched at Sarabi and swung her paw out, striking Sarabi under her chin, causing her to fly backwards. The lioness's head hit the ground, and she didn't move. Zira turned half away to Kovu. Smugly, she tilted her chin up slightly. Kovu struggled under the weight of Nuka, and now 3 lionesses. "Please, leave her alone. Don't kill her. I'll come with you." "It's too late for that. Look at her wounds," Zira sneered. "She might have sacrificed herself for you, but you'll be guilty in the eyes of Simba. He'll throw you out like the traitor that you are." "Simba." Every eye turned to Sarabi. Her good eye was partly open, her face wrinkled and suffering in rage. "Simba will forgive," Sarabi rasped. Zira walked over to and pushed her paw down on the old lioness's throat. "Well, Kovu will see about that, now won't he?" "No!" Kovu thrashed and roared, but the weight of the outsider was solid until Zira lifted her paw and declared that the old lion queen was dead. He laid there a moment, defeated with his bruised face buried in his paws. Shame and helplessness brought tears to his eyes. Nuka stood next to him. "Oh, Kovu, Kovu." Blinking back his tears, Kovu slowly raised his head and looked up at his brother. Nuka smirked. "What will Simba think of you now?" Kovu stared. What would Simba think? Was Sarabi right? Or was Zira right? Nuka gave a snorting laugh. You should have done as your mother said, little. Kovu's claws opened a large gash along and under Nuka's jawline. Nuka stumbled backwards, holding his wound, and several snarling lionesses jumped on Kovu. They drove their fangs into his back and shoulders. He roared in pain and anger. "Stop! Stop!" Zira shouted. The lionesses immediately stepped away from their bleeding chosen one. "We've done enough." Zira came up to Kovu and grabbed his chin. Her claws pressed sharply into the squished flesh of his cheeks, but did not break the skin. "You can glare at me all you want now, but your pathetic begging will be sweet to my ears when Daddy turns his back on you. Just make sure your eyes are dry when you come home. I do really hope Simba doesn't kill you for this." Kovu shook with anger. He shouldn't have wasted his energy on Nuka. Should have waited for a chance to strike at Zira. Simba would understand once he explained everything. "He won't turn his back on me," Kovu told himself. "I'm the son he never got to have." "Simba will understand," Kovu asserted. "I know he will." Doubt then crawled into his mind like a tick onto a warthog's back, burying its cruel, diseased head into his resolve. He tried not to let it show on his face, but he knew he'd failed when Zira smirked. Roughly, Zira let go of his chin, having touched where Sarabi had gently touched earlier in the day to bring up his mood. "Pathetic!" Kovu coughed and felt his muscles in his legs tense to rise, but before he could lunge at her, Zira snarled and struck him in the head. Simba, Nala and Zazu followed Kovu's roar from across the savannah. When Simba saw Kovu lying beside Sarabi, his head resting against hers, the lump in his stomach turned over and tripled in size. Kovu's ears twitched, and he lifted his head. He turned his face to Simba and Nala. Kovu's dark fur was crusted with blood. It was streaked through his trails of tears. Simba noticed the blood covering the stirred-up ground. His legs grew weak, causing him to buckle at the knees. The breeze that was now picking up into a brisk wind all but blew his mind from his body. Kovu choked out in a gravel-laden voice, "I'm sorry." End of chapter 14.